We begin with a simple question. Why are so many Australians anxious? This isn't just about a rough Monday morning or nerves before a big meeting. What we're seeing is deeper, more constant. It's a low-frequency hum of stress that sits just beneath the surface of daily life. A kind of quiet panic that doesn't go away after a good sleep or a weekend off. Australia, often romanticized as the land of laid-back lifestyles, is now grappling with something far more serious. A mental health crisis that's reaching into every corner of society. It's not just in people's minds. It's in their bank accounts, their rental applications, their job contracts, their energy bills, and even in their weather forecasts. From sky-high housing costs and insecure work to climate anxiety and crumbling social connections, the pressures are stacking up. And the myth of the lucky country is starting to feel like just that. A myth. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on the growing anxiety epidemic in Australia. We'll explore the numbers, the narratives, and the uncomfortable truths about why so many Australians are feeling overwhelmed, and what that says about the country we're becoming. Let's start with the facts. According to Beyond Blue, over 2 million Australians experience anxiety in any given year. That's about 1 in 6 adults, a staggering figure that has been steadily increasing. And the problem runs deeper than annual snapshots. A 2023 report from the Australian Bureau of Statistics found that over 40% of Australians aged 16 to 85 had experienced a mental disorder at some point in their lives, with anxiety disorders being the most common. In fact, anxiety has now overtaken depression as the leading mental health issue in Australia. And this isn't just an Australian phenomenon, but the rates here are particularly high. According to the OECD, Australia ranks among the top 5 developed countries for prevalence of anxiety disorders, alongside nations like the United States, New Zealand, and Ireland. But unlike in some countries where access to support has improved, many Australians still face long wait times, high out-of-pocket costs, or limited services, especially in rural areas. Anxiety is no longer a fringe issue. It's mainstream, and more importantly, it's structural. You're not just imagining it. You're not just bad at adulting. The system itself, work, housing, money, healthcare, is becoming harder to live in, and it's grinding people down. Let's talk money, or more accurately, the lack of it. Australia's cost of living has skyrocketed over the past few years, and Australians are feeling the pinch hard. According to the Reserve Bank of Australia, real wages in the country have stagnated for over a decade, while essential costs like rent, groceries, energy, and petrol have risen far beyond inflation. In 2024, rents increased by over 10% in capital cities, with some areas seeing hikes of more than 20%. Home ownership? Forget it. The median house price in Sydney hovers around $1.3 million. In smaller cities like Adelaide, the dream of owning a home is slipping away for many young people. Groceries are another pressure point. A basic food basket now costs over 20% more than it did just 3 years ago. And yet, wages have barely budged. This financial pressure is chronic. It's not just about budgeting better or giving up your morning coffee. It's about working harder than ever and still feeling like you're slipping backwards. Another key driver of anxiety in Australia is the shifting nature of work. And for many, it's shifting in all the wrong directions. Gone are the days when a full-time job came with stability, sick leave, superannuation, and a clear path to financial security. In today's economy, more and more Australians are juggling casual contracts, gig work, or part-time roles that lack consistency or protections. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, nearly 1 in 3 workers is now in part-time or casual employment, and many of them aren't choosing it. They simply can't find full-time work. Even among those who are full-time, job security is crumbling. Industries are changing rapidly, roles are being automated or outsourced, and the pressure to stay competitive is relentless. Layer on top of that the rise of hustle culture, where success is tied to exhaustion, and the line between work and life has all but vanished. Unpaid overtime, constant email notifications, and the feeling that you must always be on have become normalized. It's no wonder a 2022 survey by the Black Dog Institute revealed over 60% of workers experienced burnout symptoms. Today, the workplace doesn't just pay the bills, it quietly drains the soul. Once upon a time, the great Australian dream was simple. Get a decent job, buy a home, raise a family, and maybe retire by the beach. It was never easy, but it felt achievable. Today, That dream feels more like a cruel joke, especially for younger Australians. Over 2.6 million people now rent their homes in Australia, and for many, renting isn't a lifestyle choice, it's a forced compromise. The anxiety of being priced out, pushed out, or relocated far from work, family, or support networks has become an everyday reality. Rental stress, defined as spending more than 30% of your income on rent, affects over half of renters under 35. That means a huge portion of young Australians are just one rent hike away from financial distress. Meanwhile, the idea of owning a home is slipping out of reach. Back in 1996, over 60% of people aged 25-34 owned a home. Today, that figure has fallen to below 40%. This is more than an economic concern. It's a psychological one. Housing insecurity breeds chronic stress. It creates a background hum of anxiety, a sense that life is unsteady, temporary, and fragile, and it's impacting mental health across an entire generation. Then there's the planet. Australia has always had extreme weather, but in recent years, it's gone from dramatic to catastrophic. The Black Summer bushfires of 2019 to 2020 burned over 24 million hectares, destroyed over 3,000 homes, and killed or displaced nearly 3 billion animals. Then came the floods. Multiple states faced once-in-a-century floods, multiple times. The rise in climate-related disasters has created a wave of what psychologists are now calling eco-anxiety, a chronic fear of environmental doom. For younger Australians especially, climate change isn't a distant threat. It's a lived reality, and it's terrifying. A 2021 survey published in The Lancet found that 75% of Australians aged 16 to 25 believe the future is frightening due to climate change, and 40% said they were hesitant to have children because of it. That's not a personal crisis. That's a generational one. The isolation epidemic. Even before the pandemic, loneliness was quietly becoming a serious public health issue in Australia. But COVID-19 didn't just shine a light on the problem. It supercharged it. Now, even with restrictions lifted and life supposedly back to normal, that lingering sense of isolation hasn't gone away. According to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, 1 in 4 Australians regularly feels lonely. That number climbs even higher for two of the most vulnerable groups, young adults and the elderly. Why is loneliness rising in a country known for mateship and community? There's no single answer, but a perfect storm of modern pressures is fueling it. Remote work has reduced spontaneous social interaction. Digital lives are replacing face-to-face friendships. Housing costs are pushing people further from their communities, and people are simply too burnt out, too stretched, and too disconnected to maintain meaningful bonds. And this isn't just about feeling sad or left out. Loneliness is deeply tied to anxiety and mental health issues. Studies show that socially isolated individuals are up to 3 times more likely to develop anxiety disorders. The cruel irony? In one of the most connected digital ages in history, more and more Australians feel completely alone. You might think, well, at least help is available. But here's the hard truth. Australia's mental health system is overwhelmed. Public services are stretched thin. Private therapy is expensive and often booked out months in advance. In some rural areas, access to mental health professionals is almost non-existent. According to the Productivity Commission, mental illness is costing the Australian economy over $220 billion annually in lost productivity, healthcare, and social support. Yet despite all this, funding remains patchy, and many Australians simply fall through the cracks. It's not uncommon to wait 6 to 12 weeks for a public mental health appointment, and even then, the support may be limited to a few sessions. The result? People are being told to reach out, but there's often no one on the other end. One of the more invisible but powerful drivers of Australia's anxiety epidemic is cultural. At the heart of the national identity is the belief in resilience, the classic "she'll be right" attitude. It's a badge of honor, this stoic silence. Push through, tough it out, don't complain. Admitting you're struggling? That's often seen as weakness. Asking for help? That's seen as something you do only when things are truly falling apart. But what happens when that very toughness becomes a barrier to healing? What happens when millions of Australians are quietly suffering, thinking they're the only ones not coping, while everyone else is projecting an image of composure? The truth is, they're not coping either. Beneath the social media smiles and polite small talk, there's a deep, unspoken emotional exhaustion across the country. And yet, we've created a culture where burnout is glorified, rest is guilt-inducing, and vulnerability is avoided. We've glamorized coping, normalized overwork, and almost pathologized rest, treating self-care like a weakness instead of a necessity. This emotional repression doesn't make us stronger. It isolates us, and it adds another layer to the growing mental health crisis, a silent, cultural pressure to pretend everything's fine, when it's clearly not. Another major player in the growing anxiety landscape? The media. We live in an age dominated by the 24-hour news cycle, social media outrage machines, and algorithm-driven feeds. The result? A constant, unrelenting sense of threat and urgency. Whether it's international conflict, natural disasters, rising crime, or political dysfunction, Australians are bombarded with bad news every single day. It's enough to make anyone feel like they're living on the edge of catastrophe. But it's not just about the constant flow of information. It's about how we consume it. The rise of doom scrolling, the habit of endlessly scrolling through distressing headlines, especially late at night, keeps our brains in a constant state of hypervigilance. We're always bracing for the next crisis, the next disaster, the next tragedy. This cycle doesn't allow for recovery or relaxation. Instead, it keeps us in a state of heightened stress, never allowing our minds to settle or rest. And that's dangerous for our mental health. Constant exposure to fear-inducing content has been linked to increased anxiety, and it's a problem that's only growing in a world where news never sleeps. Perhaps no group feels this more intensely than young Australians. Millennials and Gen Z have inherited a world of climate instability, financial precarity, digital surveillance, and social fragmentation. They are told to study hard, get a degree, and work hard, and many do. But the promised rewards no longer arrive. A 2023 report from Mission Australia found that anxiety is the top personal concern for young Australians, outranking even education and employment. There's a growing sense that the future has been sold off, and that's producing real psychological consequences. So what now? It's easy to feel powerless in the face of rising anxiety, crumbling systems, and cultural silence. But the question we have to ask is, can Australia recover? The answer isn't simple, but it is hopeful. Because while we can't personally fix the housing market, reform healthcare, or rewrite labor laws overnight, we can take back control of how we respond, how we connect, and how we care for ourselves and each other. Recovery starts small and personal. It's checking in on a mate and actually meaning it. It's letting go of the pressure to hustle harder and instead choosing to rest without guilt. It's normalizing therapy, opening up about stress, and admitting we're not okay. It's building real-world community in an increasingly digital world. It's choosing boundaries over burnout, breadth over busyness, presence over performance. Systemic change takes time, but personal change starts today. The more we name what's happening, the less power it holds over us. The more we talk about our struggles, the more others feel safe to share theirs. Australia may be anxious, but it's also awake. And with that awareness comes the first step toward healing. Not perfectly, not instantly, but genuinely. And together, many Australians are worried. And they have every reason to be. The question is, will we keep ignoring it? Will we keep medicating symptoms while ignoring causes? Or will we listen, really listen, to what this rising tide of anxiety is trying to tell us? The lucky country is anxious, but maybe, just maybe, that anxiety can be a wake-up call. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe. And let us know in the comments. What's causing your anxiety in Australia today? Let's start the conversation.